I'm just gonna say break a leg.
Oh, okay.
Do you need a timer or are you okay?
I got one.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ian, alcoholic.
Hi, Ian.
I am a nervous public speaker, and I was nervous coming in. I'm starting. You cool? All right. Until I heard Jill speak, and I realized I was with my people, and I really appreciated your honesty and what you shared. So now I'm a little bit less nervous. So that was a wonderful intro. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service this evening. For those of you who don't know Steve as well as I do, he has several different laughs. And one you'll see featured this evening will be where his shoulders do this, and then he puts his hand over his face because he's deeply regretting inviting me once we get into this a little bit farther. But I really do appreciate the opportunity to come share my story. And I really wanted to share my story by looking at it through the lens of how I came to understand my self-centeredness over time. And as it says on page 62, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. So, I mean, when I was growing up, I felt different. I felt like an outsider, even within family groups or groups of close friends. I couldn't relate to people, and I didn't understand. I didn't feel like people understood me. And I had this wild sort of mix of either being like really, really disappointed in myself, and that came with like a lot of fear and anxiety, or that coin would flip over and I would think, oh man, I'm the greatest. Why don't people appreciate my awesomeness? And I kind of rode a sine wave where I needed feedback constantly from other people to feel okay. It really, really just wasn't easy to be in my own skin ever. And now looking back on that, having gone through the program and worked the steps, I see that was my alcoholism. That was the early manifestations of my alcoholism just in me before I ever took a drink. And as time went on, things got worse. That's going to be a recurring theme in this talk. You're going to hear me say that a lot. And then things got worse. Time went on and things got worse. I got into middle school, which is just bad for everybody. I feel like that is the worst. I have 3 kids that are pretty young right now, and I'm like, oh man, they're 2 years apart. It's just going to be a rough go. But that's where I really, really came face to face with this inability to understand why my relationships with other people weren't the way that I saw other people having relationships with each other. I just couldn't relate, and I got really anxious around them. So as you can imagine, super popular guy. I actually remember I would get so nervous talking to other people as a teenager that my jaw would tremble, and it was really visibly obvious. And then after that, mentally, totally caving. So this went on, and I struggled and what have you, and I had some friends here and there, but nobody knew me, and I felt like I didn't know anybody until I found alcohol. And I was like, hot damn, this works for everything. It is literally a cure-all for all of those problems that I was having. I could take a drink, and I felt calm. I felt funny. I had no problem talking to anybody. I'd go right up to you and just say all kinds of stuff. And whatever I was saying was like the best, and like if you didn't get it, then you just like weren't in. And worse, even worse though, is that I got positive feedback for this behavior from my peers. And I suddenly overnight became a popular person in my high school. That is the worst possible thing that could have happened. not only did I feel better, but I was getting results. And so I was like, I was never going to put down a drink. And as time went on, things got worse. So I thought I had a group of friends who were cool. And I would do anything to maintain that acceptance because I confuse that acceptance from these people as them kind of knowing me and caring for me. But even when I was invited into the inner circle and I felt I had the right group of people around me and all that, I still had a feeling of a sort of a hole inside of me that wasn't being filled. None of them really knew me, and I still really didn't know them. But I was popular, and I wasn't anxious anymore, and so I was like, "Well, what is this wrong?" I was never going to put down a drink. So time went on, things got worse. I went to college, and when I went to college, drinking was like a sport with the people that I was around. And I was around a lot of people who treated it like a sport. So to black out was like a badge of honor. In fact, one group of friends actually printed T-shirts that said "Team Blackout" on it. Like this wasn't even frats or anything like that. It was Western. Everybody was supposed to be pretty low key, and the amount of alcohol I was drinking went way up. And so I was starting to binge drink. And what happened then was that I really would have blackouts, but instead of it being funny and hilarious or whatever, I would start to do and say things that people didn't like. And all of a sudden I noticed that the crew of popular friends I was with, that started to kind of crumble, and they didn't like the way that I was behaving sometimes. And so I wasn't as cool as they thought I was. To which I responded, "No problem. I'll go find other people who drink like I do, and then we'll be good." And so time went on and things got worse. I think that the thing is, I didn't ever understand how to look at a relationship with another person in a way where I genuinely was curious about them, or I genuinely wanted to do something for them to make them feel good for no other reason than that. I think I always had a motive. I always had a manipulation or a game at play. I'll be friends with you, and I'll be whatever you want me to be, and I will say whatever I think you want me to say, as long as in the end I get what I want. I get popular friends or the right girlfriend or whatever else. Um, and now I can look back on that and see exactly the words from the book: selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. But the thing that I'm trying to express to all of you is I had no idea. I was completely blind to that behavior. Other people around me saw it, and 99% of the time, if they weren't like a fan, 99% of the time, they'd be like, "I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to tell him. I don't want to get into it with him. He's got a drinking problem. He needs to go figure that out." And that blind spot is the place where now I have awareness, and I have that awareness because of the program. The mental illness part of this, and that's a term that I use for myself, for me, was one day in the program realizing for the first time that I was looking at every relationship from a selfish point of view, but had no idea that had been going on up until then. So there's the following line in that paragraph, which is: driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows, and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation. So I did a lot of that, and I did not understand why people were upset. I graduated somehow, and there was this period of time at the end of college where I didn't want college to end. I wasn't done with it; it was done with me, kind of a thing. And so I just tried to keep living that same way. And I had a group of people I was around who drank heavily and partied, and that was just all I wanted. Um, and I was like, I went to school in Bellingham, so I was like driving back up there to like party, but I had graduated. I was like living in the past, you know. I had a girlfriend who was still going to school there. Like I had not moved on, right? And yet I was sort of transitioning into like some sort of a real life. And I crashed my car one night, uh, drunk driving in the 520 tunnel. It's not a big tunnel. And when you put a car in there the wrong way, people tend to kind of like back up. I backed up traffic on I-5 for like miles. Um, if you would have asked me, if you would have asked me a few days later if I thought I had a drinking problem, I would have said, no, I mean, I think I should probably like reel it in, you know, but I think I'm okay. Um, thank God. I had a friend in the car with me, and thank God both of us were unharmed. Um, I got to spend the night in jail, and it was a sort of a wake up call. And I remember being in court, and the judge was asking me, you know, questions, and I just had this moment where like I don't think I want this to be my life. I don't think I want to keep doing this. So I tried to figure out what a better life would be, um, and I didn't want to look at my drinking problem, but I knew that I needed to kind of move on and like clean up my act. So I decided the best thing to do would be to get a job, like try to get a serious job, which conveniently I'd just been fired from my current job for drinking on the job. So I had all the time in the world to search for a new job. Turns out if you're an alcoholic, bartending is not your calling. um, and so I like tried to get serious, and I was like, all right, if I get a serious job, I'm going to turn my life around, and then I can still kind of drink the way I want, but this is what people do. And I've been waiting to tell this story to anyone for a very long time. I've never had the opportunity to tell it. I don't know why. I've forgotten, but here goes. I decided I took a job interview to become a copy machine salesman. And I went in, and the first day was just a quick informational interview. But above the door, they had this plaque and all these rules about drug testing. And that if I got a second interview, I would have to do a drug test. And I had smoked pot like the night before, and I was like, okay, well, hopefully they just tell me not to come back. Well, I got invited back. I got invited back for a day-long interview where someone showed me around the office. I got to watch them take a sales call, and then I would have to submit it to a drug test. So this is the era of Google. I got on there and I found out that you can get these kits where you can get synthetic urine and tape it to your leg with a hand warmer. Like, if you go skiing and you break open a hand warmer, right? So I decided that was like the way to go. Instead of like telling the truth or not doing drugs. And so I did it. I like cracked the hand warmer and I like taped this thing to my leg. Hand warmers are hot. They're a lot hotter when they're right up against your skin on your inner thigh. So I'm walking around this office for like hours, and I'm sweating profusely. It's just like sweating, and this thing has burned a hole in my leg. And this guy's telling me about his client list and how he works with school districts to like upsell them on copy machine like features and shit. I was like dying the entire time. I ended up getting the job somehow, but I've always wanted to share that, and I've never been able to tell anyone until now. So thanks for indulging me. It's another great example of the insanity that I have had the privilege of experiencing in my life. So it turns out getting a real job did not help me with my alcoholism. So I would work and I would drink at the same time, and those things didn't mix very well, as you can imagine, it caused some problems. So I thought, you know what I should do? I should get married. Because if I get married, then I really can't drink and party because I gotta be home, and we're gonna go to Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know if we're gonna have enough time. This is gonna be a busy Saturday, right? Um, and yeah, we got married, and I got incredibly hammered on our wedding night. But I remember thinking the next day, thank God, this is it. I'm becoming a serious person now. I don't have to drink like this anymore ever again. I'm free of this. Um, just like hot tip, normal people do not have those thoughts, and nor do they get super blacked out on their wedding night. My wife got me an actual gift. I gave her like a 20-minute drunk speech. She was like, "Is this it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm still married to this person, by the way. This is like a miracle. Um, so we were married, and I was still drinking and working, but now it's like things are getting a little bit harder. I think what had happened when I had had the car accident and gone to jail and all that was that I had made this decision to not make the circumstances in my life be conducive to a party lifestyle or a drinking lifestyle. And so I was adding things in now that made it harder to spend time doing that. It wasn't as easy. I wasn't around people who didn't care. I was around people who did care how I spent my time and whether or not I showed up drunk to family events, etc. So it kind of felt like my tightrope started to get a little bit more narrow. And then I thought, you know what would really help me out and get rid of this alcohol problem is if I have a kid. I'm going to have a baby because I'm going to rise to the occasion. Okay, I'm going to show up. This is going to be what does it. Turns out that didn't work either, and my tightrope became like a piece of floss where I had no time. And my son, when he was an infant, didn't like me very much because I wasn't his mom. And so when we were around each other, mostly was him giving me negative feedback. I'll put it that way. He was screaming at me most of the time. So that kind of raises some stress. The work kind of raises some stress. I have this great tool I use for stress, but I can't use it at the way that I want to use it around other people because the people I'm around now aren't partiers. They're my in-laws. I spent a lot more time with my in-laws than I counted on. And they were like, "You're having a third beer?" And I'm like, "You're not?" I thought this was appetizer hour. Like, what about dinner? Like bottles of wine with dinner, or. And so I was like, well, I just like to get drunker than other people, but they don't have to know that. I was like, oh yeah, I got this great idea. I'll have like a secret way to get drunk, and then I'll have a show beer. This was my great strategy, was what I called the show beer. So I would go somewhere else, and I would drink till I got to the kind of drunk I wanted to be, and then I'd come back and immediately crack a show beer and be like, this is why I smell. And I would drink and be like, yep. See the watery eyes? I'm having a beer. Explains everything. And what I was doing was hiding my drinking, but it started to not make sense to me anymore because the kid was really important to me more than anything else, and so was my wife, and I really cared about my in-laws and my coworkers and the people who depended on me at work. And I was like, okay, I can't not do this though. And that seems wrong. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to get married and have a job and have a kid and live in a house, and then it would just stop. Like I thought that would stop, but it wouldn't. And that questioning stayed with me, stuck with me for a very long time. And I still had this void inside of me where even though I was married and had a child and had all these great people in my life, I still felt like I was on the outside. And I felt like nobody knew me. And I felt like I didn't really truly know anybody. And that is an incredibly lonely place to be. And so that feeling too spurred more drinking. So as time went on, things got worse. Um, I stopped hanging out with my drinking friends. I did all that other stuff I just said. I literally moved to an island to get away from the party scene. And my neighbors, none of them drank that I knew about. So I couldn't call someone up and be like, let's go, somewhere and drink something. Because they'd be like, what are you talking about? That's bizarre. It's Sunday morning. And you have two kids. So in a way, my strategy ended up working because it just pinned me up against my alcoholism, where I was face to face with it, and there was nothing I could do but look at it for what it was. So my wife and I, my wife is pregnant with our third child, and she lost the pregnancy at 22 weeks, and that was a very difficult time. And while she was in the hospital, a family that our other kids were in school with were having their third child. And some months later, we had them over for a Seahawks playoff game, and they brought their infant. And the mother and my wife started talking about what happened, and the two of them are crying. And I thought, well, I think what I should do is crack open a bottle of gin and hide it in the cupboard. And then that way I can get good and drunk and deal with this, but no one's going to know. And I'll have a show beer and things will work out fine. I got drunk. I was like sloppy. They went home. I got sick. My son was like, why is dad weird and sick? And I woke and I went to bed, but I blacked out. And then when I woke up, it was just another one of those mornings, except for it wasn't. I knew I was done. And I don't know how to explain that. I woke up and I knew that I was done. And I immediately started thinking, which is a bad move. And I just decided to text my friends and neighbors that I was had a drinking problem. I have a drinking problem, guys, and I can't have any more alcohol, and I'm done. And I can't control myself, and I sent that out. There's these text messages out. I called here, and someone returned my call later, and I went online looking for AA resources, and I got a response back from my friend, my neighbor, who I had known for a little over a year, and he said, "Oh, me too. I'm going to go to a meeting at noon. I'll come pick you up." And I thought, oh, cool. This guy's in AA. He can just usher me in, show me how it works, And he came and he picked me up. And I said, so how long have you been going to AA? He said, never. He said, I had a really bad night last night, and I found this group, and I need to go. And I was like, you are kidding me. He's like, no, for real. So I didn't know anything about higher power, how the program worked at all. It wasn't until later that I was like, wow, what a moment. What an incredible stroke of luck, and also divine intervention. The two of us went through early sobriety together, which was like amazing to have a friend and a partner to do that with. And so I'm in the program maybe 2 years, maybe a little bit more. And as eager as I come off, I am actually a very slow learner. And my wife and I get invited to this big birthday party on the island, someone's 40th birthday. And it's a big party, and you're supposed to dress up in 80s costume. And so I really put some time and effort into researching a costume, and I had a wig, I had a coat, I had hammer pants, I had high tops. And it comes up to the day before, and my wife says, oh, I forgot to get a babysitter, so only one of us can go. And of course, immediately I was like, God damn it. Like, how did you forget? And, did my normal self-centered thing. But because I'd been in the program for 2 years, I was able to go, yeah, but maybe there's another way to look at this. And I don't know what it is, but whatever you get, whatever anything else than what you're going to react with, do that thing. Do just something else than you. And so the words that came out of my mouth were, you know what, you should go. And she said, well, I don't have a costume. And then I was like, oh, but you do. And she was like, what? And I was like, you're going to wear my costume. So my wife cross-dressed as an 80s, I don't know what, person with these massive baggy hammer pants and this guy's mullet wig. And like, I even got the glasses, these like big glasses. And she had this icebreaker. So when she was meeting people at the party, like, she had this ridiculous costume on. She could tell them the story. And I was so genuinely excited for her. I so genuinely wanted her to have a good time and to like, be funny in this costume. And I waited up for her to come home and I couldn't wait. I was like, tell me what happened. Like, how was it? And I genuinely cared about her. I genuinely cared that she had a great time. And a couple days later, we were talking about the program and this and that. And she turned to me and she said, you know what, the other day when you sent me to the birthday party with the costume? I said, yeah. She goes, that's the first time I ever knew 100% for sure that you actually loved me. And I was like, well, shit, we've been married for 8 years. So better late than never, I guess. I think that the point of this really for me is that blind spot that I had, that has been healed. I can see now. I'm still shitty. Like my gut reaction is still not great, but I understand that there's another path, and I can see it. And I have these wonderful experiences that mean more to me than any of the other experiences I've had in my life, and they are when I genuinely feel love and care for someone else, and I am just so excited for them to have something, to feel loved or to feel cared for. And if I achieve nothing else in this program, like that will have been worth it. That the other day I saw my wife actually skip across the kitchen floor just because she was happy. And if my time in AA has had anything to do with that, then it has been time well spent. Now, I'm 3 minutes early, but that feels like a good note to wrap on. So I'm going to quit. And thank you all so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.